Wedginator here, back with another how-to video, and this video is brought to you by my Leaky shocks. Right there, yes, my forks are leaking, and you probably have guessed it, this video is about replacing the fork seals. So before I begin the service, there are two specific tools that you'll need to disassemble the forks with. So the first tool is the spring compressor, and it usually comes with this little tool also to help you keep the spring compressed, where you would jam this in between the nut and your preload spacer. However, I won't be using this tool, this part of the tool in this service, because it's not needed. I'll show you later in a second why. The second tool you'll need, this one's a handmade piece, is your fork seal driver, and again I'll show you later on in the video how this is used. So back to the spring compressor. To help compress the spring, I'll be using a couple, two actually, ratchet straps. Pretty simple. I'll show you all how this goes together later on in the video. So to begin, you need to take your wheel and your fender and the brake calipers off your bike. Now, do not completely undo your bolts, your triple clamp bolts. I've undid the bottom, but I kept the top one tight because you'll need to loosen up the shock cap. So just crack the top open. Loosen it just a bit, do not remove it completely. Now the next step is to undo the final bolt. Just loosen it up. Now your fork may fall right out, so it'd probably be a good idea to have someone catch it on the bottom. I'm going to take a risk here. And that's plenty loose. And the fork should just slide right out. Okay. And you can see the amount of fork oil that's leaked out here. Pretty nasty. Oh, and I also forgot another thing that you need is fork oil. This is what I found in the manual that's recommended. It's 10W. Your bike may be different, so look it up before you buy. Typically 1 liter is enough. So with the top part of the shock already cracked loose, you can go ahead and remove the whole thing completely. Right now there's nothing under tension, so nothing should pop out. So now we're going to assemble the shock compressor. So basically how this works is these two poles spin right in. You can see the cone surface here, and it fits right into these holes here, one here, another one on the other side. And make sure it's a snug fit. You don't have to tighten it down all the way. Now normally, if you have a friend to help you with, you can usually just push it down like so, and have your buddy slip this in between the nut. However, I don't have anybody with me, nor am I strong enough to fully compress the shock. I will have to use ratchet straps. So what I did was I just stuck a wrench through the bottom of the shock, tied up the ratchet straps up to the top of the shock compressor, and all you have to do is just continue ratcheting and this thing should compress the spring. you just need to ratchet enough to expose the nut down here, right there. Now a good idea here is to take the measurement between this nut and how far it threads in accordance to the shaft, so that when you reassemble it, you know exactly where to put the nut. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen up this nut. You'll need another wrench up here on the spring preload nut. And then just go ahead and unthread the top part here. And out comes your rebound adjuster. So just set that aside in a safe place. So now the next step is to drain the oil. Now before we do that, we have to remove the preload spacer. So that means we have to release tension on the spring. So now this is where it will pop out, but it won't be too much of a surprise. It's just a little bit of a jolt that comes up, maybe about this high. So I'm going to demonstrate. And now you can empty the fork of its oil. And then just pump the rod to get rid of any excess oil. So as you can see, my spring dropped out. In other bikes I've seen, some springs are tapered, so keep in mind where and how it came out. Fortunately, my spring is pretty much straight through, so there's no tapering, so I can put it on either way. So put your spring and preload spacer aside for safekeeping. We will be reusing them. And also, it's probably a good time to check your spring length. There is a serviceable limit. Now the fun part begins by disassembling the seals. Your first seal is your dust seal. All you have to do is just pry it off with a screwdriver. Now be very, very careful. Do not scratch your fork tube, because if you put a scratch in your fork tube, it's going to leak oil forever. Now with the dust seal off, there is a retainer clip in the inside which you have to remove first before taking out the actual oil seal itself. So let's see if I can get a good close-up of it here. A little hard to see. but it's in there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And again, what I'll be using is just a screwdriver to pry out the retainer clip. And there you have it, the retainer clip just pops out like that. Just put it on the bottom part of the shock for safekeeping. Now, this is probably the easiest part here, is to take out the fork seal. All you have to do just pull it out, and out it comes.